So you're thinking about competing. I did a video about this subject approximately 18 months ago, and it's time for an updated version because a lot more research, a lot more evidence, a lot more health concerns have come out of competing. So it's important that anyone who decides to compete or wants to compete is completely aware of what they're stepping into, of the commitment that's required, and also the health implications or the awareness of their health post-show. So, you're thinking about competing. What's the first step? So the first step is finances. Are you aware of the costs associated with competing? It's a very expensive sport. It's an amateur sport, and most amateur sports do cost money. But in regards to fitness and bodybuilding competitions, there's a lot of considerations to make in regards to finances, things that we're not entirely aware of, and it differs from male to female. So I'll use female as an example because generally for a female it is a lot more expensive. So from a female perspective, you've got to register with your chosen federation. Then you've got to enter the competition that you're going to compete in, and that allows you one division. That's generally around the $150 mark plus $150 for the annual registration. Then if you want to do multiple divisions, you're looking at anywhere from $175 per division on top of that. So straight away you can see it's adding up. Then you've got to look at tanning, hair and makeup, attire. So are you wearing a bikini, heels? Okay, then there's associated posing sessions as well, which is pretty important. So you can do group or singular. So again, further costs. Then you've got to look at all the food, the training, the coaching, travel arrangements. So do you need to travel somewhere to compete? Do you need to stay somewhere to compete? It can be anywhere up to $1,000, $2,000 for one given show, depending on how many divisions you do and where you travel to. Some people do more than one show because, look, let's face it, at the end of the day, you're in this amazing condition and you're not going to be in that condition for a long time, so you want to make the most of it by doing multiple shows, get better experience, but it does cost more money. So that's the financial side of things. Now, we look at the physiological side of things and the mental health side of things. And this also impacts your emotional state as well. Because you are dieting to a very low percentage of body fat, getting to a very lean state, this impacts your energy, your libido. It can impact the way you think and how productive you are during the day. So if you've got family, if you have a full-time job, all of these things can be impacted. So you need to be aware of this before you start. Also, your support network. It's so important that your support network, your partner, husband, wife, parents, kids are all aware that you're doing this and are on board, because if they're not, it's going to make things 10 times harder for you to get to where you need to be. You need to take stress out of the equation to have success in any given prep. It's so important. So you need to make sure that your partner is on board. You need to make sure your kids are aware of what's going on, because you're going to eat very meticulously as well. They're going to see that. So they're going to be wondering why you're eating the way you're eating. You're going to be weighing everything. You're going to be eating at certain intervals throughout the day. You're obviously going to be training before or after work, during the middle of the day, on weekends. You know, your training is going to ramp up. So all of these things are going to play a role in what people perceive as your life for a 6-month period perhaps. So make sure that everyone in your inner circle is aware of the process you're about to undertake. Make sure you're fully aware of the process you're undertaking, because it's a massive commitment. You've effectively got to put your life on hold for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, depending on where you start and where you finish. So that includes the impact on social occasions, going to friends' barbecues, going out to dinner with friends or family members, birthday parties, you know, Christmas, Easter, all these things will be impacted. Doesn't mean you have to stop, but it does mean that you will potentially not be able to go out and have a drink or have the food that you can order from a restaurant or from a menu, because you need to be more restricted in regards to what you're eating. So that can be impacted as well, and that can certainly impact your emotional state because you feel left out. So it's important that you are completely committed to your goal, which is getting on stage in the best position and best condition possible. So we've mentioned finances, we've mentioned the emotional state. Now, in regards to your health, it is easy enough to have that goal of getting on stage. So you diet down, follow the process, get on stage. The next part is the reverse diet. post-show. Now, this is where most people struggle because there isn't another goal. So the first 3 weeks are the most critical component. You really need to maintain your diligence with your eating post-show to ensure that you come back out of your calorie deficit into a surplus without packing on a massive amount of weight. A lot of people will get to show day, they compete, they finish, and then they go and eat tons of food for days on end, make themselves sick, but they also put on excessive amounts of body weight really, really quickly. Body fat, I should say. And because their calorie intake has been so low, yet they're all of a sudden eating heaps of food without improving their metabolic threshold, straight away they're putting on weight and they can't diet out of that. So then they get into a mental state of, oh my God, I'm putting on weight, but I can't diet out of it. So it's so important, reverse dieting, another component. And if you employ a good coach, they will be able to reverse diet you out effectively with good strategies, good protocols to ensure that not only does your body come out of it in a great position, but your mind as well. So important. So we've talked about finances, the cost associated with competing. We've talked about your support network and the emotional side. And then we've talked about the health implications. But are you truly ready to compete? Have you got a history of training? And I mean training hard, intense, on weights. It's a bodybuilding show at the end of the day. So have you been training with weights for a period of time to have the base of a physique that's ready to be competitive on stage? If not, then perhaps it's time to spend significant time in the gym, in a calorie surplus, training in accordance to that goal. If you have been training for a number of years and you've got the base behind you, then yes, you probably are ready to compete from a physical standpoint. But have you dieted before? Have you experienced what it feels like to be hungry? Because let's face it, at the end of the day, you're going to be hungry, and you're going to be hungry often. It is something that you cannot explain. So not only are you going to be hungry, but your energy levels are going to be significantly lower as well. So which means your productivity in the gym can potentially decline. And that's where this thing comes in. You've got to maintain mental strength when you're training to ensure that you're still lifting well and lifting often, because we need to preserve muscle. If you're in a calorie deficit and you're not training as much as you should be, or you're not training as hard as you should be, and you're letting your training slip, you can potentially lose muscle in this process. So it's important to be able to train as hard as you can in the given time that you've got under the instructions or the programming that your coach has given you. So you need to be able to train. So you need to have this experience behind you. By setting yourself up with the knowledge, the education, the understanding of what you're about to step into gives you so much more advantage, because it takes away elements of stress, and stress is the biggest killer of any given prep. So if you take away the elements of stress, your prep and your process of prep is going to be so much better. So if you are thinking about prep but you've never experienced before, you're a first timer, you don't have too much experience in the gym, and you haven't had too much experience dieting in a deficit before, I suggest you engage the services of a coach. Spend 6 months, 12 months under their tuition, under their advisement, to get you to a point where you are you have further progressed in terms of your training ability, your strength, you've put on muscle, you've worked out and understand macros and flexible dieting and the approach that they take to ensure that you are then ready for competing. So that's it, guys. I think that covers most things. I wanted to be broader with this video. Anyone who does sign up with me will need to watch this and understand what they're in for, because at the end of the day, yes, it's an amateur sport. Yes, we're doing it for fun and for potentially a great experience, but there are also health implications, there are mental health implications, there are emotional implications. So you need to be aware of what you're getting into. If you have any questions, please ask. The more questions you ask, the more knowledge you have, the better prepared you're going to be. If you're more prepared, there's no surprises, there's no stress, and the prep will go according to plan. Happy days.